Well, the petrol price increase along with electricity and the prime lending rate. KPMG lead economist Frank Blackmore joins us to discuss the economic week ahead. And Frank, I'm hoping you're coming with some good news because it seems like it's a lot for us South Africans to take in today. But let's just take it one bite at a time. So the petrol price increase, that should be expected. And by how much?
Well, in fact, if I looked at on Friday, I see a decrease. We have an over recovery on the diesel price. So that maybe we're dishing out the good news first. And I think that comes on back of the appreciation of the rand. So the rand touched a sort of low of about 1860 in the second week of March. But since the announcement by the Reserve Bank to increase the repo rate by 50 basis points, we've seen a strengthening of the rand towards the end of the month, and that has allowed sort of petrol comes in 1 or 2 cents over recovered, while diesel came in around 77 cents over recovered. They haven't announced yet what the changes in petrol price will be from Wednesday this week. So we're looking out for the exact figure, and of course they can decide to give you the full amount or partial part of that amount. But that, I think, is the reprieve that we'll get.
Yeah, but in terms of the rand performing well, is it only because of the Reserve Bank's announcement? Could there be other factors influencing the strength we're seeing in the rand?
Well, the Reserve Bank's announcement helps because the difference then between the sort of real interest rate that South Africa is offering compared to that of the rest of the world increases slightly. But the most important factor guiding the rand currently has just been the US Fed rating cycle. And I think it's anticipated that they're reaching the end of that monetary policy tightening cycle. And that's giving a bit more certainty to the markets, allowing people to be more risk on in their behavior and looking to invest in places like South Africa, and we're gaining slightly from that too.
Yeah, investor confidence is always good for the country's economy, but also still on the rand, how long do you think that good performance, that strengthening of the currency will last for?
I definitely think we have a way to go. We can at least go to around probably 1650s, 17s if, once the top of the cycle has been reached. That would sort of be fair value. Remember last year, the story was basically that as the Fed started hiking, everybody depreciated against the dollar, not only South Africa, but obviously emerging markets as well as European markets. Because there was a lot of uncertainty and there was a flight to safety, and that means generally the dollar gains. That'll have to unwind itself over the course of this year once there is more certainty in markets.
All right. I want to talk about this no April's Fool's joke. We were hoping it was, but it wasn't. 18.65% electricity tariff, Frank. That increase starting on the 1st. I mean, the impact of this now confirmation that we've just received about this tariff increase.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, we were warned because we always see what the suggested increase is that is asked by Eskom, that Eskom asks NERSA. We always hope it doesn't materialize to the degree that it has, but unfortunately this is the case. So 18.65 from this year, 1st of April, and then another April Fool's non-joke will be next year when we get an additional 12.74% increase. And if you think we start, if I look back to 2008, the electricity price has increased 4.5 times since then. So we're looking at about 5 times, perhaps by the end of this sort of rate increase cycle. And I don't think most South Africans would really be bothered by this if it was resulting in better service delivery. But with the revelations of Dorata and, the sort of corruption allegations, I think the taxpayer is going to get to a point where he's going to be fed up in paying these type of increases if it's not going to service delivery.
Absolutely. There seems to be a no value for money or tax in this instance. But speaking of the consumer inflation being high right now, I mean, perhaps some projections in terms of how it will definitely hit our pockets at the back of that 50 basis points again by the SA Reserve Bank.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, though, a lot of the inflation that we had over the last year is a result of what has taken place in the Ukraine. Remember that invasion only started in February, which meant that the inflationary pressures only started Feb, March, April. And so if we take the position we are now, we shouldn't really expect much of a decrease in inflation for these 3 months. And as we've seen, we've gone to 6.9 in January, 7% in February, but I think the real reductions will start coming in from around May on a base effect basis, because we've seen global prices for both food actually and fuel coming down quite a bit. In fact, fuel is down to sort of pre-invasion levels, and that'll mean we expect an increased or accelerated decrease in inflation from the middle of this year towards the end of the year. So much so that some economists are still seeing reductions in interest rates by year end, depending on where we end up by November, because that's the important meeting for us before Christmas.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you, of course, speaking to me about this, giving us, of course, heads up as we look into how the year will look like. Frank, thank you. KPMG Lead Economist Frank Blackmore, thanks for speaking to us this morning.